Hello, everybody. So I'm just going to go through real quick on the counterintelligence discussion for Module 9 from me and Devontae being the leads. I'm going to include the questions, my answers to each of my questions, and then a couple of quotes from people that I thought were interesting. I'm only doing my 2 questions. So the first question I asked was, why might there be external indicators of intelligence activity, and what are some examples? How might this be of use to CI? All of the information that can be found with my question was from Lowenthal, Chapter 7, I guess. You could have used the other articles, but that's mainly where I was looking at it from. So I put counterintelligence agents may look for external indicators of problems such as sudden loss of a spy network overseas, a change in military exercise patterns that corresponds to satellite tracks, or penetration of other services apparatus that reveal the possibility of one's own having been penetrated as well. And that was from Lowenthal. That was actually a quote. I should have put quotations. Having external indicators are necessary within the intelligence community to identify potential threats and enemies that can gather sensitive information, such as the identity of clandestine officers, the opponent's human intelligence capabilities, strengths, weaknesses, and possible alliances. That was my reasoning for how it could be of use to counterintelligence, just because that is sensitive information. Of course, you wouldn't want anyone having their hands on it, especially the enemy. This was probably the easiest question I posed. I just wanted to put something out there that I thought everyone could respond to. It was easily digestible, and I thought that it would create a lot more discussion that way. But question 1 was actually the question that not too many people responded to, so that's okay. Question 2, in your opinion, what is the most significant problem in counterintelligence and why? Why do you think certain issues in counterintelligence continue to linger? So my answer for this was, having trust within agents of the community has been the most significant problem in counterintelligence, and it is one that continues to linger. According to the Taylor and Snow article, the motivations for cause of treason can be broken into several categories: money, ideology, and gradation and disgruntlement. These are motivations that will never fade from society, and while there are indicators for cause of treason and safeguards that are put up to protect the community, there is no stopping the human desire for these things. While the vetting process continues to become more difficult, this is a problem that is likely never to be solved. I put that as the most significant problem, and it's a problem that continues to linger just because, really coming from the Snow and Taylor article, there's always going to be those motivations out there, whether it's money or money actually probably is the biggest one, because that's everyone's biggest motivation if you think about it. And we could see several examples, such as Ames, who, we saw the changes in their lifestyles and their spending habits, money, and that's what led to them being discovered. So I think the quotes that I got from my classmates will tie into that, especially Joshua. Quotes from posts I liked regarding question 2 because that received more than the first. The first question only got maybe 3 responses. So I think I'm going to be focusing on the second question just because there was more meat to that, I guess. The first one being Haley's, and I picked Haley's because Haley answered exactly how I would have answered it. The first quote was, one of the most critical problems which occur as a result of counterintelligence efforts is that of internal trust. Yeah, so that was my reasoning behind it as well. I think having trust in people is something that's always going to be an issue. I don't think that will ever necessarily be solved, just because, in the intelligence community, you really can't trust anybody, no matter how rigorous the vetting process gets. There's always going to be the motivations listed. People are always changing circumstances, even people are always going to have reasons to be weighing, to being disloyal. And I think that's just something that's never going to go away. It's literally human nature. So the second quote was, familiarity can lead to lowering one's guard or being unwilling to believe that one's own people may be disloyal. Familiarity was another problem, just because when you have people within the community that they've been through the process, you know them, you may know them personally, you don't want to believe that they would go against the agency, that becomes a problem. It's just you become more familiar, I guess, with them in a way that you don't want to see them go, or you don't want to believe that they would have a reason to go against the agency that they've jump through hoops to get into, and they're your colleague, your friend sometimes, so familiarity is a big issue. Number 3, the problem is a paradox, and it is unsolvable for many reasons simply due to the human variable present. I mean, yeah, that's what I've been saying. It's a problem that's always going to be around. It's a problem that's going to continue to be around. It's one of those things that you can put so many safeguards up, and you can make the process of getting into this highly exclusive, this entity is just going to be difficult to get into. But even when you're in, you can't really trust anyone in there because, there's always going to be reasons not to. Okay. Question 2, quotes continued, Joshua. I put Joshua's post in here just because I appreciate posts like the one Joshua made, because he answered in a way that I wouldn't have answered, and it caused me to have a new perspective, I guess. He put the most significant problem in counterintelligence is the sheer volume of material / people involved. And at first when I read that, I was like, yeah, I guess they deal with a lot. They go on a daily basis with having overwhelming amounts of material to analyze and people to follow, and there's always constant communication issues. But then I thought, people who are overwhelmed with, this amount of material or these many people being involved, they get overwhelmed and sometimes overworked, and this may be the cause of people to seek out what Snow and Taylor talked about with the motivations, such as money or similar ideology or disgruntlement, when they feel like, they're may be fed up with their position. They may seek other opportunities. They may look at, the enemy or, someone who's offering them something that the agency or the branch might not be offering them, and they may want to, venture out and be disloyal. And then that causes moles and people who are going against us. But number 2, a drastic change in a person's life can dramatically affect how they view the world and what they do. That is something that was talked about when discussing, monitoring people's behavior, their spending habits, their personal life, in order to weed out potential treasonous, disloyal members. That's also something that will always be an issue, but sometimes I think it's becoming more difficult figuring out the vetting process, or the process of keeping tabs on people, just because there has to be a line of this is work and this is personal life. But I think keeping tabs on people will continue to be necessary within this line of work, just because you can't trust anyone. So I think that was a good point that he made. Question 2, quotes continued, Scarlett. Scarlett always has good things to say. She put, for me, after doing all the readings, the problem that most jumped out to me was the issue with familiarity and trust. Again, this is something that Haley pointed out as well, and it's something that I fully agree with. I thought that was the most significant issue. When you get too comfortable with people, you start to trust them in a way that might not be ideal for this line of work. And so, you might not want to be that familiar, comfortable with people, just because it would cause more issues and more opportunities to be betrayed, I guess. And number 2, she put familiarity here means that an organization will be more hesitant to admit wrongs or even open an investigation into potential traitor because they know it will inevitably damage their image within their own country and the rest of the world. That was something else that I thought was interesting and that I didn't think to put was an organization. They have this really tough vetting process that takes months, and people are subjected to polygraph tests. You monitor their personal lives, and so you have all these safeguards put in place, and when someone manages to get through those safeguards, you don't want to admit it, I guess. You don't want to be able to say, we have all of these tests that people have to pass, and so for somebody to pass them and then, continue to be disloyal, it's a slap in the face to not only, the world, but it's a slap in the face of the organization that is supposed to be protecting against these types of problems, and so you don't want to admit when you're in the wrong, and I think that is something that is necessary to point out, and I'm glad Scarlett did that. But that's everything. That's all the quotes I thought were interesting. Hopefully, I think the discussions were pretty good. I saw lots of posts. I think Devontae was a good discussion co-lead, and hopefully I was good as well. But thank you. That's it for counterintelligence.